Hi everybody, Chris Arcaro here from Striking Results Pro Shops in Atlanta, Georgia. I am going to start doing some ball review videos this week. I think there was a lot of great releases that came out from Brunswick and all of its brands right before the coronavirus really hit and everything shut down. And I think a lot of those balls have kind of gone by the wayside. You know, nobody really talking about them just because nobody was able to throw them right when they came out. And now with new balls coming out around the corner, I just wanted to touch base and make a few videos about these current products that we have out that are really good and that I've been using and that I've been enjoying. So today I'm going to do a comparison with the Prism series. It includes the Prism Solid, the Prism Hybrid, and the Prism Warp. I have the Prism Warp and the Prism Hybrid here physically with me. I did a video yesterday with all three of them, so the Prism Solid is in there as well. And it does have the same layout as this Warp, so we'll talk about that later. So first off in the comparisons, I'd like to say that all three of these bowling balls have the same core. It does have the Portal core, which is a 2465 RG with an 051 differential. It is a large asymmetric core. All three of the bowling balls offer dot and dynamic core technologies, and they all have some sort of the activator composite technology cover stock. The Act Solid is on the Prism Solid, the Act Hybrid is on the Prism Hybrid, and the Act Composite Technology 2.0 is on the Prism Warp. So I'll start this off by just kind of doing an overview of the shapes that I see out of each of these bowling balls. The Prism Solid is your large, early, smooth, asymmetric piece. It's got teeth in it. You know, the cover compound is 360, 500, 2000 Sayer, so it's gonna dig and it hooks early and it's just very predictable and doesn't miss the spot. Whereas we move to the next release, which was the Prism Hybrid, it's really the opposite of the Prism Solid. You know, it's still a large core, but this cover stock is so much cleaner. It retains a lot of energy. It gets down the lane really well for as big of a core as it is, and it's very continuous and very responsive to friction. And then the third ball in the line, which is the Prism Warp, which is the newest release, fits really well right in between the two. You know, for me, I always did feel like when the first two were released, there was a gap in between them because it was really hard to go from the Prism Solid into the Prism Hybrid unless this one had, you know, a closer pin pack or unless it had more surface to blend it. There was a gap there. And I think the Prism Warp fills the gap great because it's a little bit more overall than the Prism Hybrid, but it's much more continuous than the Prism Solid, which I think is what they wanted. So we can stay in this portal core a little bit longer before having to get into smaller cores and symmetric bowling balls. How different are these bowling balls? Well, for me personally, I can see them anywhere from 10 to 15 foot of difference with my feet. Meaning, you know, how steep and how far away my angle has to be to get it through the front of the lane. Whereas, you know, the Prism Hybrid, I feel like I can get much farther in and loop it because I know it's going to retain and hook more down lane. Where the Prism Solid is much more forward rolling, it's much more shallower angles for me, and I think the most important thing when we talk about how different these bowling balls are isn't just the left to right reaction, but you know, there's 10 to 15 feet of difference in how early versus how late these three bowling balls can hook depending on how you put the layouts on them, and their response to friction. You know, the Prism Hybrid is going to hook a lot more and a lot faster responding when it sees friction versus the Warp and the Prism Solid being the slowest response off of friction, in my opinion. Where do I use these bowling balls? So we have three completely different shapes, but all still in the same kind of category as size and overall hook potential. I see a lot of the Warp and the Prism Solid being used on heavy volumes to start blocks, you know, when you want to keep it in front of you, when you want to make sure your ball's seeing the front of the lane, or on shorter patterns and cliffed patterns. happens to where you have so much friction and you don't want to use urethane, where you're trying to really blend the lane out. And I think either of those ways, these bigger bowling balls really tend to work well for. And then you've got your Prism Hybrid, where if you sand it a little bit, it can go right off of the warp as far as doing the same kind of thing that those bowling balls will do. But if you keep it shiny, and if you want something that's going to get down lane and really have some pop when it gets down there, or something that maybe when your warp gets a little too slow around the corner as you chase it left, you want to get into that. I think that's what I look for more in the Prism Hybrid, where it's a ball that I can trust it's going to hook the farther left I get my feet to make sure it's going to come around the corner every time. The layouts I've used on these, the Warp as well as the Prism Solid that's in the video, are both 55 by 5.5 by 45. It's kind of my basic layout for most, at least the first ball I get of each ball. It's easy to compare it to other bowling balls going off of the same layout. Now, the Prism Hybrid, this is my third one of these I've drilled, and I've drilled a couple with the standard layout, but which work great. And I just thought that we've seen a lot of these go down the lane on TV. We've seen a lot of these go down the lane in the leagues, and we know that this ball can go 40, 45 feet and look like somebody kicked it at the end. But I really wanted to showcase the versatility of this line. So as well as being a different cover and being a little bit spread apart from the other two bowling balls, I did something different on the layout on this one, which is 90 by 1.5 by 45. So it's very close pin to pat, and it really showcases that this ball still hits very well. Bowling on house shots, bowling on cliff patterns with a higher rev rate, sometimes it's hard to throw the cleaner bowling balls because they retain too much energy going down the lane. And with me drilling this one like this, I could really stay in that same track and that tube that I'd like to play on house shots without getting my feet too far left to give away carry. So followed by this, we're going to have probably 3 or 4 shots of each bowling ball, and I'll talk a little bit about what we're seeing with those bowling balls as we go through those shots. And then at the end of the video, if you have any questions about any of these bowling balls or drilling any bowling balls in general, please reach out to me or any of the 5 striking results locations listed at the end of this video. Those are the locations that I help out in. And soon, probably in August, I'll have a set schedule to let you guys know where and when I'll be at what times. But for now, I'm just doing lessons and doing equipment evaluations and helping people get drilling up the right bowling balls right now with everybody coming back. So if you have any questions, please Facebook message me, email me, or call me. All of those will also be linked into this Facebook video. And all of our videos will start to be put on YouTube. So that way, if you missed one and you want to go back and watch it without scrolling through all the Facebook stuff, you could go on YouTube and look at the archives there. There will be more videos this week of some more of these bowling balls that were released around this time. We're hoping to do some closer videos as well as maybe some U-motions and some results. So that's all I've got for this. Thank you for tuning in, everyone. And here's a couple shots with each of the prisms. If you guys have any recommendations or if you have any requests for videos, please shoot me a message and let me know what you think. Thanks, guys. You have a good day. All right, so we're going to start with the Prism Solid. Early hooking, this is kind of where I was talking about blending the patterns. There's not a lot of volume in the front of these lanes, but they are cliffed. So it's nice if I can keep my feet far enough right and get my speed up. Back in my hand out, I know that this ball will not go left down lane. It's nice and smooth, and it still goes through the pins well. Now, here's the Prism Warp. Probably a better match for these lane conditions. It's one of those big balls that you can chase in, and it is going to come around the corner. I always feel like if I can start with the ball and stay in it for more than 3 or 4 games, it's always nice, and it makes my day a lot easier. And that's kind of what this Prism Warp reminds me of. Put a little surface on it at the beginning of the day, let it lane shine up as the day goes, stay in it. Now, here is the 1.25" pin off my axis hybrid. Now this one was in and a little fast, and it still tried to scout the 10 out, even with that 1-inch pin. Now this one I get in the lane much cleaner, get it hooking up there, and it'll go through it fine. Now this one I did shape it a little more, a little softer, just to prove that those close pin to paps still do sling the pins around pretty well with this dynamic core. Thanks guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. Have a nice day.